Welcome, fellow lovers of the weird and strange. This is Lance, your host of Legends of the Hidden Horde, where we explore the folklore behind the mythical creatures that stalk the dark corners of our globe. A huge thank you to all of you for tuning in. Your ears make these strange journeys possible. If you enjoy the show, please hit that subscribe button, leave me a quick review, and give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, or X. Your support truly makes a difference. Episode 45 is an original imaginative weaving that stays respectful of the recorded cosmology and living continuity of Chumash knowledge. Let's dive in. The canyon held its breath after the last light bled through the ridges. In the country that stretches from the Channel Islands to the inland mountains, land of the Chumash people for thousands of years, the middle world thinned at night. The elders had always said so. Below the world of people lay another place, cʔoyinašup. And from that lower realm, the Nunasis rose, once the sun was gone. There was not one creature. The world itself carried the weight of many. Dangerous animals, misshapen beings, things that walked in the dark with human shape but wrong proportions, or animal shape that refused to stay animal. Some were covered in pus that never dried. Some hopped on a single twisted leg. Some carried baskets on their backs meant for children. The worst of them, the hap-hap, could inhale and draw trees, stones, and living people into itself as easily as a man draws breath. This is the story of one such night, and of the boundaries that must not be crossed lightly. Old grandmother Mamoy, not the plant, although the plant took her name after the flood, had warned the young ones for as long as anyone could remember. Drink the water in which she washed her hands and you might see tomorrow. Drink too much, or drink without guidance, and the world below might answer you instead. In the time when the first people still walked and the flood had not yet turned so many of them into the animals we know, a young man named cʔoyinašup, we'll call him that though names shift across the tellings, grew restless with the ordinary powers. He had watched the Antap Society and their ceremonies. He had seen the way certain men and women could speak with animals or find lost things. He wanted more. He wanted the kind of power that made others step aside. One evening, he slipped away from the village near the coast and climbed into the canyons, where the painted caves still hold the marks of older visions. He carried a small amount of the root of Mamoy, prepared without the careful measuring the specialists used. He sat in the mouth of a cave that smelled of bat and old smoke, and drank. The first hours were the usual dizziness, the trembling, the sense that the rock itself breathed. Then the world tilted. The middle world and the lower world brushed against each other like two skins. Something moved in the brush below the cave. At first it looked like a bear, heavy and dark, but the gait was wrong, too smooth, too deliberate. Then it was a deer, antlers catching starlight, yet the eyes glowed with a cold internal fire that no living deer possesses. Then it was neither. The form stretched and folded, limbs lengthened. A human torso appeared where the animal's body had been, but the head remained animal, or became something between. The mouth opened wider than any mouth should, and the sound that came out was not a roar or a call, but the sound of wind being pulled into a void. cʔoyinašup tried to stand. His legs would not obey. The thing, the Nunasis, looked up at the cave mouth with those glowing eyes and inhaled. The air itself moved. Small stones rattled toward the creature. A young oak at the canyon floor leaned, roots cracking. cʔoyinašup felt the pull of his own chest, as if the breath in his lungs wanted to leave him and join whatever waited below. He remembered, late, the old warnings. The Nunasis come out after nightfall and travel the middle world. They bathe in the water and leave it steaming. You bathe early, before they returned. You do not call them. You do not drink without guidance, when the boundaries are thin. He pressed himself against the back wall of the cave and spoke the words the elders used when something dangerous approached. Words of respect, of acknowledgement that power exists and that humans are small within it. The pull lessened, but did not vanish. The creature below paced. Its form kept changing. Now the pus-covered skin of the cʔoyinašup. Now the limping gait of the cʔoyinašup. Now the heavy inhaling shape of the hap itself. All edge cases of the same hungry presence. The story said some Nunasis had been killed before the flood, yet others still walked. The story said they could be avoided by staying inside after dark, by keeping the proper ceremonies, by not reaching too far into the lower world without someone who knew the path. cʔoyinašup stayed in the cave until the first gray light. When the sun touched the ridges, the thing was gone, though the oak at the canyon floor remained permanently leaning, its wood twisted as if it had been partly swallowed and then released. He returned to the village changed, not stronger, quieter. He told the elders what he had seen, and they listened without mockery. Power, they reminded him, is not a thing you take. It is a relationship you enter carefully, or it enters you. Years later, the same canyons still hold the stories. Travelers, some Chumash, some not, have reported lights that move without wind, voices that mimic a relative calling from the bush, tracks that begin as animal and end as something else. Most of these accounts remain at the edge of belief. The elders say it is proper. The lower world is not a place for casual visitors. There are edge cases, a child who wandered after dark and was found the next morning unharmed but unable to speak of what followed him. A hunter who claimed a bear stood on two legs and spoke his name before dissolving into a coyote shape and vanishing. A woman who drank mamoy in solitude during a time of grief and woke with the memory of a mouth that had tried to inhale her soul and then, for some reason she could not name, released it. These stories are told carefully, never as entertainment, always as caution. The hap remains the most feared in the old tellings. When it inhales, everything nearby is drawn in. Trees, rocks, people. It is not malice in the human sense. It is an appetite in the nature of the lower world pressing upward. The other Nunasis share that nature in different degrees. The basket carrier who steals children. The pus-covered ones whose touch brings illness. The lame devil who hops through the night seeking what it can take. They are not evil, as a Christian devil is evil. They are dangerous the way a cliff is dangerous, or a flood, or the ocean when the fog hides the rocks. They belong to a cosmos that is ordered yet uncertain, where supernatural beings can be kind or malevolent according to their own logic, and where humans must walk with humility. The Chumash understanding of the three worlds, middle world of people, upper world of certain powerful beings, lower world of the Nunasis, does not separate the sacred from the everyday. The land itself is alive with these pressures. Caves, certain peaks, the places where water rises from underground. These are thin places. To approach them without preparation is to invite the lower world to notice you. In the long years after the missions and the near erasure of language and ceremony, the stories did not entirely die. They went quiet. They waited. Contemporary Chumash people continue to recover language, song, and the knowledge of the land. Some of that recovery includes remembering why certain places were avoided after dark, why certain plants were handled only by those trained to measure their power, why the boundaries between worlds were marked with ceremony rather than curiosity alone. In a modern version, a researcher walked alone in a remote canyon at dusk, thinking only of archaeology. He hears a voice call his name in a language he does not speak. He turns. Nothing is there. Yet for the rest of the night, the air feels thinner, as if something had taken a long, slow breath and is deciding whether to take another. He leaves at first light and does not return alone. These are the stories meant to frighten for their own sake. They are maps of a dangerous universe that is also a sacred one. The Nunasis teach that power has weight, that the unseen world is not a playground, that appetite, whether for knowledge, for strength, or for the souls of the living, must be met with discipline, community, and respect. What the Nunasis ultimately reveal is the cost of forgetting the edges. When a culture loses the language that named the lower world, when the ceremonies that mark the thin places fall silent, the boundaries do not disappear. They simply go unmarked. In an age that treats every landscape as resource and every mystery as data waiting to be extracted, the old stories stand as quiet refusal. The world is not only what can be measured in daylight. There are places where the middle world and the lower world still brush against each other. There are beings whose nature is to pull, to distort, to remind the living that they are not the center of every story. The lesson is not fear for its own sake. It is humility. It is the recognition that some hungers are older than human ambition and will outlast it. The future implication is simple and severe. If we continue to treat the living land and the unseen pressures within it as obstacles or curiosities rather than as powers that require relationship and restraint, we may find ourselves drawn into the patterns we no longer have the language to name or the ceremonies to survive. The Nunasis do not need us to believe in them in order to exist. They only need the night, the thin places, and the failure of respect. The elders still say, bathe early, stay inside after dark when the canyons feel wrong. Do not drink without guidance. Speak to the land as if it is listening, because it is. And when something with glowing eyes and a mouth that inhales the world itself looks up at you from the canyon floor, remember that you are small, that power is not yours to command, and that the lower world has always been patient. That's it for the story of the Nunasis. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Give me a follow on social media. And until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows.